Thank you, Minister. Thank you, first of all, for the opportunity to be here with you today and have the chance to share some thoughts with you. I would also like to thank all of you for resisting the temptation of being outside enjoying the lovely Croatian coast and the Mediterranean Sea. And you're in here with us discussing another aspect of the Mediterranean Sea, more challenging, I would say. And challenging or challenges will be one word you will hear me saying a lot in my intervention. First of all, I'd like also, since it's the first time I take the floor, to congratulate Croatia for the successful end of the negotiations. And we are looking forward to welcoming them to the European family, but if I may say so, also to the Mediterranean group of EU member states. And we have a very special group, I have to say. And also congratulate for organizing for the 6th year the Croatia Summit, which has become an institution, a very important forum for challenging and useful discussions. Now, the issues we're discussing today are very important, and I'd like to begin by making 3 admissions. The first one is that, and we have to admit to that, have all been taken by surprise. This is the reality. We didn't really anticipate the magnitude of the events, the repercussions, the scale, the depth, and the consequences of the developments in the southern Mediterranean region in just over a few months. The second, that we cannot continue with business as usual. It's not like that anymore, and I will refer to that in a while. And the European Union, for example, has already endorsed a new, different approach regarding the development of our relations with our southern Mediterranean partners. And third, that the changes, the developments present a series of challenges, opportunities, and we have to admit risks as well. Well, the first challenge, of course, for these countries is to prove that democratization does not cause instability, that change does not bring chaos, nor create a power vacuum, that transition to an open, free, democratic system can be achieved without being exploited by extremists or lead to radicalism or fundamentalism. And we all know what this means. The second challenge, to prove and convince the people in the country that things will be better from now on, they will be better than before. And this is very important that people not just believe into this, but also feel it. And I refer not particularly to those who have actually started or led the revolutions and the uprising, but those who followed them. Even more importantly, those who did not believe in the change. And this is very important, that the events do not lead to revenge, retaliation. We don't end up with a situation where we have winners and losers, because we know very well from experience, recent history, that losers feeling like one, being treated like one, leads to resentment, and that leads often to violent reactions. So all must be convinced that the results of this transitional process will be better and will not lead to any less liberal or less free political situation. We have experiences in the past when it came to that, revolutions that instead of leading to the right direction, they ended up in a worse situation. But also economic challenges. There must not be an economic collapse or failure, and again, have examples from the past. And that's why it's important that we have to invest and help create economic and political safety. It will be disaster if people think that, if they ever come to admit that things were better before. This means that without rushing things, we cannot lose time in developing the institutions, the infrastructure in these countries. And the European Union must work with the people in these countries, help create the political and economic infrastructure. And as my colleague Haj Watzenberg has said, investments are very important. Financial assistance, financial aid is important to help relieve temporarily certain urgent needs, but does not create economy. Investments that will create jobs, will build the economy, and that's a big challenge for the European countries. But on the political level as well, multi-party functioning system, this is very important. We have to know that, we all know actually, that free elections doesn't mean just the right to go and cast a vote. It means that there are choices out of which one can choose. And therefore, we need to have equal opportunities for political groups and parties, and of course, access to the media is an example for that. Then, of course, everything entails certain risks and certain security challenges. The first, I've already mentioned that we don't end up with political instability that will lead to a power vacuum, and there will be a spillover of Islamic radicalization. And there is a risk as long as there is no credible, open, and democratic government consolidated in the countries in transition. Second is the effect on the Middle East peace process and the relations with Israel. And this is, we have to know that having a legitimate democratic government that is accountable to the people could possibly mark a harder line towards the state of Israel, and this is a reality. Public opinion will have to be taken into account, and by the way, I would like to make a parenthesis, this is a reality for all of us in the so-called West. Now, it's not enough just to strike a deal with a certain government. Now we have to take into account the public opinion that will affect how the political decisions are taken in these countries. So a harder line towards Israel could have negative effects on the overall Middle East peace process. And we know that the mood, the public opinion, the better experts than me sitting on this panel, the public opinion is rather negative towards Israel in these countries. And that's why I think it's important for us to support the French initiative to restart the Middle East peace process. It's a good effort, and it should have the support of all of us. And the third, terrorism. And this is also a reality. We know what's happening in Yemen. Al-Qaeda apparently is increasing its influence and its presence, so that's another of the risks we have to deal with. And then very quickly, immigration. This is consideration, was already mentioned, even though indirectly, but large movement of people, large flows of immigrants, especially to the southern EU countries, can pose a threat to the socioeconomic stability of these countries, especially if one considers that these countries are already overburdened with large numbers of illegal immigrants, but also at the same time as the countries that have been most vulnerable from the economic standpoint and severely affected by the global financial crisis. And something that we should also take into account, environmental threats. Large movement of people and armed conflicts do have a detrimental effect on environment, and in these most vulnerable regions of the world, this can have a very disastrous effect. So we have to take into consideration also the environmental impact. From the European Union's point of view, we are ready to work, and we should be ready to work with our southern partners, provide them with the tools and the capacity to deal with our challenges, but we have to have always in mind the need for local ownership of this process. We should be there if we're asked to help, and we should be ready to offer our help if this is asked. We have the expertise, we have the knowledge, we have the capacity, and we should be ready to offer it. And last but not least, the Union for the Mediterranean. I will not go into the details. We have the Secretary General with us today. I think this now proves that the Union for the Mediterranean can be a very important instrument, organization, in dealing with the challenges of these countries. We have to find a way to bypass or resolve the political problems that exist in the Union and move with the more practical aspects, the concrete, technical, and financial projects. This is where I believe the emphasis should be. So once again, thank you very much for the opportunity.